Skeleton does offer a little bit of custom styling for both unordered and ordered lists. You can find the rule sets under the Lists section of the Skeleton CSS file. So let's create our navigation based on an unordered list in the index.html file. Let's come down here, and just in our 11 column section, we'll put in a UL element. Inside of here, we'll put in an LI list item element with a link. And the first anchor text will be our food. Shift and Alt down to replicate it just 3 times. Our people. And finally, we'll have a contact us. All right, let's save it. And this is obviously not suitable for horizontal navigation, so let's fix that in our main CSS file. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that media query just temporarily. And what we want to do now is reference the header HTML element and UL. So by default, we're going to put in list style type is none, and that will get rid of that circle. We'll float to the right of the column and we'll put in margin 0. So let's save and check out the result. All right, so now we need to float them to the right of each other to make it a horizontal list. Float left and margin bottom 0. Okay, so now we need to space them out from each other. Header UL LIA, and we'll put in a color gray. For our font size, we'll make it slightly smaller, so 0.8 EM, and margin left will be 40 pixels. So now we can see the result is much better at this point in time. Okay, so by now you should have a pretty strong grip on working with typography here in Skeleton, but before we wrap this module up, let's give our containers some custom rule sets to really define this layout even more. So for our middle content section, we're going to create a purple background with a background image from the images folder that we imported earlier. So if you recall, the ID is purple-container, and the background is going to be set to a purple color code that we used earlier right here, so we can just copy that. And then also we'll reference a background image, and that will be in the images folder, foodbg.jpg, and no repeat. Background size will be cover, so it fills out the entire section. Overflow we're going to set to hidden, and position will be relative. And this is important because we're going to add an effect momentarily. So we'll save this. And of course, the color is not white yet because we haven't yet defined that WT helper class, which we will in a little bit. But let's add a diagonal sort of element on top. So if you recall, we created a div with the class of cut. So let's define that in CSS to create that effect. The background is going to be white, so 3 Fs. Position will be absolute, as we'll lay it on top of the div. From the top, we're going to put negative 20%. The left will be negative 20%. And by the way, if you're wondering how I came to some of these values, simply because it was due to trial and error. So the width is going to be 120%, and the height will be 30%. Then we're going to use transform origin, center top, and then transform will rotate it by negative 3 degrees. So let's go ahead and save and check out the result. Very, very cool. All right, awesome. Now let's define that WT white text helper class. That's WT. Color will be white. We'll check out the result, and you'll see it's much, much better. Consequently, the text down here has now been hidden. So let's also define the container background for that. If you recall, the ID is dp-container, the background color of 210031. So this is kind of a darker desaturated purple. All right, great. So it looks like we're really getting somewhere with this layout. In the next module, we're going to take a look at buttons and forms here in Skeleton.